Welcome back to another episode of True Spoken. I'm Joe Statzer, the Executive Director of the Butler County Republican Party. This is True Spoken Productions. It's brought to you by the Butler County Republican Party. So this next episode is totally dedicated to a great speech here at Big Bulls Roadhouse. Big Bulls Roadhouse is in Ross, Ohio, part of Butler County, and many of you probably have been here. It's a great speech by Corey Lewandowski, the 2016 campaign manager for Donald Trump. He's still often on Fox News. He tours the country giving speeches. You're going to love his speech here tonight, and that's what this episode is going to be. A great, rousing speech by Corey Lewandowski. We brought him here into Ohio, into Butler County for this Freedom Rally. We're going to have hundreds here tonight. It's going to be packed here at Big Bulls Roadhouse with a lot of great conservatives wanting to get our freedoms back and standing for America. And that's what I implore you to do, too. You know, over the last 8 months, we've had the Biden administration. We saw what Biden-Harris can do to America. Inflation. We have border crisis, Afghanistan crisis. Oh, my goodness. All the things that's going on right now. It's got a lot of conservatives concerned, and we should be. Because right now, America is not going in the right direction, but we need to turn it around and get it back. So let's watch this episode of Corey Lewandowski, and then after you watch it, get riled up, come to True Spoken GOP Facebook page, True Spoken for Trump, Butler County GOP Facebook page, and Butler County for Trump Facebook page, or to our Butler County website, but get involved. Let it get you involved in doing something to get America back on track. We all love America. Let's do something about it. And now, Corey Lewandowski. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to Ross, Ohio, Corey Lewandowski. Corey.
Well, thank you, guys. You know, I came tonight to deliver some good news and bad news. What do you want first? Let me give you the bad news. Sheriff Jones doesn't realize this, but when Donald Trump takes the White House again, we got a new job for him in Washington. So you may just lose your sheriff, but the country could get the next Homeland Security advisor right over there. Now that might be the bad news for you, but the good news is I can't wait for that Senate confirmation hearing. Sheriff, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Mitch, shut up. No, Sheriff, you can't say that. Oh, I'm sorry. Chuck, shut up. Right? Look, how refreshing is it to actually be in a place where people talk like normal people? It's amazing. You know, Butler County is Trump territory, and I have been around this country with Donald Trump for the last 6.5 years, looking in the eyes of people who are just proud to be Americans. And I want to thank you for that, but let me tell you something. We should be afraid of what's going on right now in the last 7 months. In 7 short months, we have seen an administration that has now told us you cannot stand for the flag and you cannot kneel for God. You can't go to church because of COVID, so you've given up your right to assembly. You can't go out and meet with your friends, so you've given up your right to free speech. This is what the government does. And now they're telling us, if you ask someone for an identification when they go to vote, you're a racist. But we want everybody in America to go get a vaccine shot, and you have to produce an ID for that, but we're not racist. Look, the problem is the media. They're a big part of this. You know, yesterday, anybody see Uncle Joe's press conference yesterday? It was amazing. I was sitting there, I was in North Carolina, I was watching Uncle Joe says, I am so grateful to thank, what's the guy's name? Johnny Smith. The guy couldn't even remember the guy's name who works for him. And we think Joe Biden knows how many Americans are sitting in Afghanistan right now? No idea. Why have they not started impeachment proceedings against Joe Biden right now? $80 billion of equipment left behind in Afghanistan. Tens of thousands of Americans. And here's what they told us today. We're going to rely on the Taliban to provide Americans safe passage. Oh! So let me just take out my passport, Mr. Taliban, and say I can't wait to get back home because I'm an American. Sure, right on your way. Of course not. Look, Donald Trump was very clear. It was time to bring our men and women home because we deserve our men and women here unless there is a reason. But we would have kept a quick reactionary force in places to make sure that they didn't take over. We would have put our men and women in uniform on the border to make sure it was closed. And what did Joe Biden do? He opened the border and he closed Afghanistan to Americans leaving. And what do we do about it? We turn on the news And they all praise Uncle Joe. They all say how great he was because he was the guy who knew what to do, right? He was going to be the steady hand of the American foreign policy. And they didn't like Donald Trump's rhetoric. That's what they told us. Look at his policies. Look what Donald Trump was able to do in 4 short years. He brought our enemies to their knees and he made our allies pay their fair share. You remember some of those tweets he told Kim Jong-un, you might get a button, but mine's bigger and it works? Let me tell you something, he was serious. I have been with this president for a long time, traveled around this country with him and speak to him almost every day. He is so disappointed in what has transpired and what they have done in 4 short months. You know, China is going to take over Taiwan, we know that's coming. The Americans are weak now. The greatest fighting force the world has ever known is now weak and relying on our enemies to take care of Americans. So what do? We have to go to the ballot box. Butler County has been a stronghold for Republicans, but it's not enough. You know, you think about what our forefathers gave, and people think your lives are tough. You don't know what tough was. Tough was literally going against the greatest military the world had ever known in Great Britain and putting their lives on the line to fight for the freedoms we have today. And our lives aren't tough. Many of us have made our sacrifices. Many of our family members have, and put on the uniform and said thank you, and stood in the breach. But let me tell you something. We may be at the worst time our country's ever known. We're no longer respected. We're no longer feared, and we no longer have the support of our government except for them to tell us what to do. They're now telling us, Joe Biden today said he's going to mandate every business require people to be vaccinated to come to work. Listen to me. It's not legal. It's completely illegal, it's un-American, it's unethical, and if we don't do something about it, shame on us. So let me tell you something. Here are our options. You got to send better people to elective office. But here's what we have to do. We have to stand up and fight. In our own way, on social media. Look at what the media has done. Look at what these media tech companies have done to us. They've decided to determine what you say and think is either right or wrong, and if they don't like what you say, they ban you for a day, a week, a month, or permanently. When they ban the leader of the free world, they can ban anybody. So we need to be afraid. And we need to make sure that come November of 2020, we send some fighters back to Washington. You got Jimmy Jordan here from Ohio, who's a fighter. And you got Warren Davidson, who I've gotten to know well, who's a fighter. But you better send some more. Because the Democrats are completely unified. Nancy Pelosi runs that caucus with an iron fist. And when someone gets out of line, crushes them. The Republicans, oh, let's go along to get along. I'm tired of it. I don't want to get along anymore. I want to win. That's what I want to do. I want to fight is what I want to do. Look, the one thing Donald Trump told us is it's okay to get up and fight and believe what you stand for. And if you get yelled at, you're doing something right. So listen, you know, during the last election cycle, maybe you guys saw me, I had to testify in front of Congress 6 or 7 times. Because I supported a guy named Donald John Trump running for president. And I had to sit there in front of this guy by the name of Jerry Nadler from New York. You ever see this guy? Yeah, he's a real beauty. He's very handsome in person, I can tell you. So I'm sitting there in front of Congress testifying, and this is a true story, and I'm sitting there for like 7 hours in front of this committee, and they're drilling me. Mr. Lewandowski, do you remember page 97 of the Mueller report? I said, what page is that? I'm sorry, can you tell me again? What line? I look at it, no, I don't remember. Right? I did like 100, I just wasted time all the time. And as I'm sitting there, the phone, my cell phone's between my legs, and it keeps ringing and ringing. I'm looking down, and I can't take that call, I'm on TV. And I go, and I finally finish testifying after 7 hours, and I look down, and it says Donald J. Trump on my cell phone. He must have called me 40 times while I was testifying, right? So me and a couple of the boys, a couple of the buddies, we finished preparing for the testimony, went out, we had a couple of drinks at a restaurant, and I looked down, and Trump's calling me against him, I better take this one, right? So I say, yes, Mr. President. He goes, Corey. That was great testimony. But what are you doing now? I said, I'm out having a couple beers, celebrating with the fellas. He goes, what? I said, yeah, I'm exhausted, sir. I just testified for 7 hours, emotionally and mentally smoked. He goes, what, are you going to stand in the corner like a baby and suck your thumb? I said, no, sir. He goes, get out on TV right now. I said, yes, sir. And so I go on TV because this guy doesn't miss anything. But that's who he is. And I said, sir, I saw you kept calling me. He goes, I wanted you to put me on the microphone so I could talk to the committee. But I didn't think that was a good idea, sir. But, you know, it's amazing because you hear all these stories about Donald Trump, and some of us are very loyal to him because of what we went through and the time together, and there are so many occasions where he goes above and beyond that the media doesn't report. And I can tell you on numerous occasions, particularly when he first got elected to be the president, it was the first Thanksgiving, and I was home with my family, and the phone rang, and it said Donald Trump, and he said to me, hey, Corey, are the kids around? I said, yes, sir. He said, bring them around the dinner table. And he just said, you know, kids, I want you to know something. He said, I wouldn't be the President of the United States if it wasn't for your father. And I'll tell you something. For a kid who grew up poor in a place called Lowell, Massachusetts, that's a very humbling thing for him to do. And that's why it instills in me the loyalty that I have in him, because I have seen him in the best and the worst circumstances. This guy wakes up every day and he fights for you. And it's infectious. It's infectious, and he tells other people how to do it, and he shows them how to do it, and it's amazing. So, let me say this. There was one day, and I've got hundreds of Trump stories, thousands of Trump stories. You know, a couple times I wanted to get off the airplane at about 35,000 feet, and I told service, you better block the door because I'm getting off about here. We're flying over Green Bay, I think. And Trump he can break you. He can rip your face off like you've never seen. I remember one day I was going up to do a Fox News hit, and I'm in the car, and I got two of my boys. I'm in my pickup truck, and the phone rings, and it's about 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning, and I see on my phone in my truck, it says Donald J. Trump calling. So I put him on speakerphone. I said, good morning, Mr. President. And he's on Bluetooth in the truck, and I said, he goes, hey, Corey, I watched you on CNN and MSNBC last night. I said, oh, thank you. He says, Mrs. Trump watched you and said you were amazing. And I said, oh, well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Would you let her know that? He goes, I watched you. You were weak, Lewandowski. And I'm trying to shut the Bluetooth off, get my kids to hear this, and the president ripping my head off. So he says, where are you going? I said, I'm going up to do a Fox News hit right now. He says, okay. You're going to get on Fox, and you got to say the following. Bing, 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 bing. Tells me exactly what to say. So I go up, and I get up on Fox that morning, and I'm on the show, and exactly what Trump says. Bing, 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 point by point. He calls me right after, Lewandowski, you're the greatest, you're back. I said, well, sir, I just repeat what you tell me, and it works every time. But I'll tell you, it's things like that, it's stories like that, it's, memories like that. And the way he had such a command of what was and is the America First agenda. And, the sheriff talked about it. These generals, they'd come into the White House, sir, we have 22,000 missiles we'd like to use immediately. What's that cost? I don't know, sir. No one's ever asked how much a missile costs. He says, well, go find out and come back. And these generals, all they want to do is blow everything up. That's what they all want to do. And Trump says, hey, slow down for a second. Let's see if we can work this out the right way. And I remember it was kind of written about, we had this 4-star general, Marine general, big dude. He was a monster. His name was John Kelly. Ever remember that guy? This guy thought he was the president for the longest time. Until one day me and John get into a fist fight in the Oval Office. I liked my chances. He was an old 4-star, so I took a shot at the guy. Secret Service came in, they tried to arrest me. I said, hey, fellas, you touch me, you're going to Siberia. And after that, John didn't stay in the Oval that much longer. He found his way out of the building pretty quickly because there were too many guys who thought they were the president. And I would watch the president tell the staff what he wanted, and they would just dismiss him time and time again. And I would say, I just heard the president give you a lawful order. And they'd say, yeah, we're not doing that. He'll never remember. By the way, this guy doesn't forget anything. And so I think a big problem of our administration the first couple years is we were unprepared. We had the wrong people in the wrong jobs. You remember that guy Rex Tillerson? He was our Secretary of State that Trump fired while he was on the toilet. I thought it was a pretty good story, right? Yeah. Rex had gone over to North Korea to try and negotiate peace. Trump says, it's never going to work. Let me take care of this, Rex. No, I'm going to take care of it. Trump's guys on the toilet, Trump calls him, you're fired. That was it. Rex was having a bad day. But it was all these guys. And here's what I think. Now that we're 6 years since we started this project, since he came down that escalator, we had a small team to start. We grew to a big giant team. It's back to a small team again. And Donald Trump is the same Donald Trump he was 6 years ago when we started this, except he's more ready to fight. There is more on the line now than there has ever been. And if we don't get smart and tough soon, we're not going to have a country to leave to our kids. So let me just finish with something real quick, and then I'll take a couple questions if you have them. You guys have some big elections coming up in Ohio. Big elections next year, okay? Ohio has sent Republicans to Washington, D.C., but you got to do more, okay? You can't just send a Republican. We got Republicans like Liz Cheney. Have you heard her? Lisa Murkowski, right? You know, if we had just a modicum of the media to support conservative principles, we'd be so much better off. So stop believing the fake news who told us that Donald Trump used tear gas to clear Lafayette Park only to find out he never did it. Stop believing the media when they said the Trump supporters bashed a police officer's head in with a fire extinguisher, which never happened at the Capitol. Stop believing the media when they said Donald Trump allowed bounties to be put on the heads of our military men and women overseas for the Russians. They're liars. They're crooks. They're dishonest. They have their own agenda and is not America first. See, what they do is they call us racists, misogynists, and they make you disprove a negative. That's all they do. They say you're a racist because you want to support Americans. They say you're a racist because you want to stand for the flag. They say you're a racist because you have an American flag on the back of your car or flying it over at your house. And the New York Times and the elites who all went to these Ivy League schools don't know what it's like to go to work every day. You know, the sheriff was talking about flushing a toilet. Well, if you've been to Lowell, Massachusetts, you knew that trick. Because we were just as poor as everybody in Butler County. We just didn't know we were poor. You know, the first time I ever met a person who owned 2 cars was when I moved to Ohio after graduate school. Because where I grew up in a mill town on the river where cops were in our family and postal carriers and mill workers, and my grandfather was a union printer for 40 years. And what I knew about this great country, you can grow up to be anything. I grew up in a poor place called Lowell, Massachusetts. Not only did I think I would ever get the chance to meet a president, let alone get to call one my friend. So I'm going to tell you a very humbling story for a kid who grew up poor in Lowell, Massachusetts. The first time I had the chance to go into the Oval Office after Donald Trump was elected president was maybe one of the most important days of my life. So I had been with Donald Trump for thousands of hours and traveled with him, but he had gotten elected president, and I still get to talk to him on the phone a lot, but I didn't get to just show up anymore because they had guards and guns in the White House and all these things. And so I called him one day and said, "Sir, I'd like to come see you." He says, "Well, come on over." I said, "It doesn't work that way. You gotta make an appointment and go through security." And you're fine, Corey. I said, "Yeah, so it really doesn't work that way." So I finally, about 3 weeks after he's sworn as the president, the office calls and says, "Can you come over and see the president?" I said, "Of course I can." So I put my very best suit on and my best tie, and I walk into the West Wing of the White House where I had never been. And I'm standing in the outer room. There's a small ante-room where there are 3 desks where my buddy Dan Scavino, who does Trump's social media, was sitting, and Keith Schiller, our body guy, and just talking. And the door to the Oval Office was open. And I could peek in through the door and I could see the president sitting behind the Resolute desk. And sitting in front of the president was the Vice President of the United States to the president's far right, and there were 2 empty chairs. And I'd never stepped across that precipice of door to go into the Oval Office where world decisions have been made and people's lives have been impacted forever. And I stood there thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get to walk in this room in about 10 seconds. And I stood there for a second, waiting to see what would happen. I thought like maybe a bugle would go off and they'd say, Mr. Lewandowski, please come in. He looks up, he goes, hey Corey, get in here. So I walk into the Oval and the president says to the vice president stands up and he says, hey Mike, do you know who this is? And the vice president says, sure sir, that's Corey. And he says, Mike, do you know who this is? And the vice president says, well, yes sir, it's Corey Lewandowski, I know exactly who this is. And the president says, no Mike, this is the guy who said you could be the vice president of the United States. And I said, well actually sir, about 65 million people said that, but I helped select you, so. And that's the tag team of Donald Trump and Mike Pence. So thank you guys. Thank you for sending leadership to Washington. Thank you for supporting Donald Trump. Thank you for being Americans, and thank you for loving this great country. Thank you. How about 2 quick questions on any topic? Yes, sir.
Who's Donald Trump supporting for governor?
Who's Donald Trump supporting for governor?
Ohio.
Oh, see, I get myself in trouble when I start doing these things. Let's see what the field shakes out to be. I don't think it's done yet. Yes, sir. The question was, did Mike Pence screw this up? You know what I say? I say, and I mean this with the absolute utmost adoration for Mike Pence. I think he's a man who's too good to be in politics. I really do. He is a God-loving American who, his son is a Navy aviator and loves this country. And I think sometimes we get leaders who are a little naive to how tough Washington, D.C. really is. That's what I'd say. So, yes, sir. So the question was, will I consider a run in New Hampshire for my life? Is the only thing I'm running for. I'll tell you, look, I'm fired. Nobody can fire me. I don't work for anybody. So this is a true story. I'll probably get yelled at for this one, okay? We're flying on Air Force One. So we're on the plane and we're sitting in the conference room and I was contemplating looking at a U.S. Senate seat in New Hampshire, and we're flying out to Kentucky. And we're on the plane and Donald Trump comes over and we're sitting around the conference table, and to my right is Rand Paul and to my left is Mitch McConnell. We're flying to Kentucky and Trump comes over and he says, hey Mitch, my guy Corey, he's going to run for the U.S. Senate. I'm going to support him. And Mitch goes, oh, well, sir, we've got a process to review the candidates, and we've got a questionnaire we'd like him to maybe fill out, and then we can see if there's some synergies with the... I turned to Rand Paul, I said, I hate this guy. Rand says, me too. I mean, it's just amazing. Just come on. Yes, ma'am. Will the president run in 2024? Look, that's up to you guys, and I mean it. Here's what we need. We need to win back the House in 2022, and we need to retire Chuck Schumer from the U.S. Senate. Those 2 decisions will be the single biggest determining factor if Donald Trump wins and runs. Because if the America First policies are on the agenda, and we win at the ballot box, Donald Trump knows it's time to come back and lead this country again. So, last question, yes sir.
What do you think about mask mandates at Miami University?
Yeah, they don't work. How's that? You know, I'll tell you what. Hey, I just came back from Sturgis. Anyone know where Sturgis is? I just came back from Sturgis, right? Yeah, baby. I listened to this phony Fauci on TV saying that Barack Obama's birthday party was not a super spreader event, but everybody went to Sturgis was. This guy should have been fired a long time ago. Masks are a total scam. Let me tell you something. You want to get vaccinated, go get vaccinated. You don't want to get vaccinated, welcome to America. That's how this place works. Thank you guys very much.